Okay, welcome. So today is our Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness meeting. It's nice to have you here. And we're going to, as usual, we're going to relax into health, wealth, and happiness. But today, I really mean it. And of course, I always really mean it, but I hope that you will really mean it as well. Because sometimes I think what can happen is there's a cynical part of us that takes over, and there's a part of us that brings us here that is sincere, that really has a sincere intention, that knows what's actually possible. And then the cynical part takes over and it says, you can go to sleep now. I'll handle it, it says. And we don't quite catch it. We don't quite notice that this is happening, but I'm just gonna make sure that this is, setting is correct. Okay. We don't quite notice it, but I'm inviting you to notice it now. I'm inviting you to notice that you don't want this cynical part to take over, because then what's the point? What it does for the cynical part is it's just another thing that it can file away and say, see, more evidence that nothing ever works out for me, that nothing ever gets better, that all of this relaxing into health, wealth, and happiness business is just a bunch of malarkey. It's not real, not for real people like me. But you actually are tired of that. I know you are, because that's why you're here. So let's actually really invite and welcome and allow for what is true and possible, rather than serving that cynical part. Let's serve the truth. So we have this time. Let's actually make good use of it. And to make good use of it, we want to invite that part of us that is sincere to be awake. It's like I'm reminded of the biblical suggestion: be like children. So this sincere part of us is innocent like a child. And I think what happens is that we become afraid that the innocent part, the childlike nature, is somehow to blame for all the things that we think have gone wrong. And this cynical part says, hey, I'll take care of it. And you go to sleep and I'll take care of it. And I'll put on the hardened exterior and we can just pretend like we're in control. But we know that that doesn't really give us the results that we want. In fact, that is what makes things worse over time. So have the courage to say, I don't need that hardened shell. I don't need that protection today, because all the protection that's needed is provided by the divine, so that it's safe for this innocence, this childlike nature, to be here, to be sincere and awake and present and enthusiastic and maybe even a little bit excited. Think about, unless you just really got shortchanged as a child, which sometimes happens, but maybe you can recall some moments of when you were a child, when you were excited, when the that innocence and sincerity hadn't yet been squashed. And so you were able to be genuinely excited, like you knew that something great was going to happen, something really, really wonderful, something, and it didn't have to be in your adult mind. It doesn't have to be anything great. It's just like you're going to go get ice cream. But it was great. It was something so wonderful for you in that moment. And these kinds of things, I think we often have shut down because they worked out badly in some sense. But it's a misunderstanding. We took those situations, we took the things that didn't work out the way that we wanted, the disappointments, the hurts, the pain, all that kind of thing, and we twisted it into something that's not actually truthful. We tell ourselves a lie and tell ourselves that that's the truth, that it's not safe to be innocent, it's not safe to be uh, enthusiastic about your own life, it's not safe to be optimistic, it's not safe to have excitement about something, about the possibilities, the potential of what might be, because, and then we fill in the blank with all the reasons why we know that it's not safe. And for everybody, there's a slightly different story there, but it's variations on a theme. But what I'm inviting us to is to notice that, again, that's just not working out very well. So we tell ourselves that we need to play life in a particular way. It's not very much play at that point, but we tell ourselves that we need to live our lives in a certain way in order to be safe, or have whatever, hold on to whatever little thing we have or we think we have. But if we really take a look sincerely, which I'm suggesting we can do right now, we'll have to see that that's not really a life worth living. Holding on to these scraps, crumbs. And what I'm suggesting is that there is something really juicy and alive that's available. Something really worth living. Something that is so wonderful that you could wake up every morning genuinely happy to be alive, happy that, and grateful that you have this opportunity, grateful for the blessings of your life, not because you've convinced yourself that that is a good thing or the right thing that you should be doing, but because you actually feel it, because you really know that that's true, because you can observe that that's a reality. So I know that that's a reality, and I know it's possible for everybody because that's the truth of who you are. But when we shut down and hide from it, we forget. So this is about remembering. That's why it's relax into health, wealth, and happiness, because we don't have to work really hard to prove to the world and earn it and do all these kinds of things and get it and take it and hold on to it and all that. That's not the way to what we really want. Maybe there's a time and place for all of that. I'm not saying that we should never, ever make an effort, that we should never strive or have ambition or uh, work hard or any of those things. I'm not saying that there might not be a time and place for that, but I'm saying that in the biggest sense, in and of itself, those things fall short of delivering on what we really deeply want. And so here, just for now, the invitation is to get clear on what you really want. So as I often invite us to do, I'll invite us to do the same today, which is to actually take a look and notice, what is it that you want? And in a way, that's what I've been inviting you to look at all along here for the last 14 minutes or so. But now to really look at it head on, what do you want? And you might notice that what you know what you don't want. What you don't want. And what you don't want is what you probably focus on a lot, usually in the negative sense, trying to get rid of what you don't want, or trying to avoid what you don't want, or trying to negate what you don't want. And that's the job of this cynical piece of us. So remember, we're allowing that part to rest. We don't need that part right now. Again, maybe there's a time and place for it, but right now it's a safe place. We don't need it. So let that part go, just be at rest. And instead, what do you want? So notice that it's different than what you don't want. They might be somewhat connected, but there is a difference between what you don't want and what you do want. And it's not just that what you do want is the opposite of what you don't want. Actually, what you do want is primary, and what you don't want is a reaction to your fears that you can't attain what you do want. And so over a lifetime, what usually happens is we have so suppressed what it is that we do want, and we only focus on what we don't want, that we by and large forget what we do want, or we're afraid to actually connect with what we do want. So sometimes when we start to even catch glimpses of what we do want, we will state it like a question. That's what I want, maybe. So sometimes it's not clear right away. Sometimes it's a bit of a mystery, and you scratch your head and you get, maybe you even feel frustrated. You don't know, how to figure out what you really want. But just notice that actually what you want, we could approach this in a lot of ways, but one way is to notice that what you want is to feel good. See, that's not so hard. You want to feel good. You want to feel fulfilled, joyful, connected. If I'm wrong about this, let me know. So this is what you want. And then, but that's the essence of it. But then it's going to express through you and as you in a unique way. So we can say everybody wants, at the core, everybody wants the same thing. Because we could reduce that in a sense to saying, or simplify it by saying, you want yourself. You want who you are in essence. You want the truth of yourself. And everybody has at the core that same self. So that same self is there for everybody, and that's what we all want, and that is peace, love, joy, happiness, fulfillment, connection. So we need to recognize that, of course, but then we need to be bold, because this life is a pretty bold move. I mean, you notice that I hope you can see that that's true. It's pretty bold to be here. So we're not going to be satisfied to merely, I should put that in air quotes, merely, because it's no small thing, but we're not going to be satisfied merely to connect with what we want in essence, but we also need to connect with it in its unique expression through us. So there's where it gets a bit tricky, because the essence of it, I can tell you that. I can tell you the essence because it's the same for everybody, but the individual unique expression of that, that's for you. to know and to live. And that's the bold part, because nobody else can know that for you. And a lot of other people are going to have some judgments and opinions about it, in case you didn't notice. So it's a really bold thing to be willing to be yourself, because other people are going to have their judgments and opinions. You'll have your own judgments and opinions. It may not be convenient. It may be awkward. It may be uncomfortable, but it's true. So we can endlessly guess at it. You could try from the outside in to figure it out. You know, you get a list of careers. I don't know if you ever had that experience, when you like senior year of high school or the equivalent wherever you might live, and it's like, oh no, now what am I supposed to do? And they give you a list of things. Which of these things do you want to do? 10,000 possible careers, and you could go about it that way. What do I want from the outside in? I want to be the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Do I want to be a car mechanic? Do I want to be a housewife? Do I want to clean fish tanks? What do I want to do? But as is probably no surprise to you, I wouldn't recommend that, because like I've said, that you can just be endlessly guessing. But instead you can go from the inside out. So just start with the essence, and then notice that there's some part of you that is innocent and excited, enthusiastic, childlike. And this part has been, as I've suggested, has been suppressed, denied, shut down. But this part will actually give us the way. See, all we have to do is go to the essence. Just close your eyes for a moment and just notice, maybe just actually smile. Even if it seems forced, it doesn't have to be like a big, huge smile, just a smile, just a smile that as authentic as you can manage, even if it doesn't seem very authentic, but as authentic as you can manage. And just notice what it is to actually connect with feeling good. For no reason, not because you've accomplished something, not because you've earned it, not because other people have given you approval, not because you just won a prize, not because of anything like that, but because it's already there. Because it's already intrinsic. And then allow this part of you, which is innocent and like a child, to access this good feeling. Connect this childlike nature with the good feeling, and just see, doesn't it naturally have enthusiasm? Doesn't it naturally like feeling good? And isn't there naturally a creative impulse that arises in this childlike nature, if you don't shut it down, if you don't start feeding the cynic again, who is all too eager to say, that's not going to work, and that's stupid, and that's only going to cause problems, and yada, yada, yada. And everything always just ends in disappointment anyway. So what's the point in trying? But if we just don't give our energy to that, and instead we just continue to just allow this childlike nature and the good feeling just to be here. And at first, maybe it seems small. Maybe you're not sure that's even real. But remember, it's bold. It's a bold move to be alive. So be all in, play the game. You know, it's like maybe you've had that experience where you were somewhere and there was a game and you didn't really, you're like, I don't play games. I don't like playing games. I'm not comfortable with that kind of thing. But if you just were willing to allow yourself to lighten up and play, maybe you could have a nice time. Hopefully you've had that experience of just lightening up and playing and having a nice time. So try that here. Try just playing along. Even if you say, yeah, but I don't know how to do it. I'm not very good at it and I'm not sure it's going to work and I'm afraid. Okay. But remember, this life is a bold move and you're here. You chose to be here. So commit, go all in, be willing to play. Just see what happens. This childlike nature and the good feeling, maybe there's not a lot of confidence there because these have been suppressed and we haven't cultivated them very much. But like anything in life, the more that you're willing to engage with something, the more you practice, the stronger it becomes. So maybe you won't be the best ever. Maybe you won't be the most successful ever. Maybe you won't be the fill in the blank ever. But are you going to let those fears stop you from committing 100% to your life? And we can up the ante, as it were, by pointing out that this life, not only is it a bold move, but it's a big gift. You know, you might say, some gift, a lot of difficulty, a lot of pain, a lot of heartache, a lot of suffering. But that's just the cynical part of you. This innocent part of you knows the truth of what I'm pointing to when I say it's a big gift. Because there is some part of you that knows for sure that you want this. You want it so much. So be willing to admit to that and then say thank you for this gift. Because it's kind of a big deal. So we have this big gift. And maybe up to a certain point, there's been hesitation to commit to it fully. How about this? Let's actually draw a line in the sand so that we can't go back. Let's not hesitate any longer. So you could even imagine that with your eyes closed, you could actually imagine that you draw a line in the sand. And I want you to know that on the other side of that line is commitment to your life, saying yes fully to honoring the gift, to cultivating this good feeling and this childlike nature. And when you step over that line, you're really making that commitment and you can't go back. And then I want you to actually find out, are you willing to do it? So I'm not trying to trick you. I want you to choose. But know that you're really making that choice. You can't go back once you cross over. So are you ready to cross over? And if you're ready, then I want you to step over that line. And when you do step over that line, I want you to see that when you look back, there's nothing there that you can step back into. So now you really have done it. You've really made the commitment. So with this commitment, now whatever happens is part of this journey of the unfoldment of your authentic self. So it's like any story, any tale, there's some point of no return. And then whatever twists and turns may be ahead, whatever detours may occur, it's all part of the same journey. It's all part of this authentic unfoldment of the story of this life. So nothing that can happen from here on out can be unimportant or accidental. Everything that happens from here on out is filled with meaning and purpose, offering opportunities. So the the cynical part might not like the sound of that. It might start looking for reasons to try and wiggle out of it. I didn't really cross any line. This is all just make believe and it's all a bit silly. I don't have to do anything. I'm the boss of me, says. Don't really like this idea of losing control in a way and merging with life, being filled with life, aliveness. That's not really my gig, it says. I'd rather just try to play it safe. But maybe it's exposed a bit more now so that you can see it for what it is. It's arguing for death, not even in a good way, but like lifelessness. So see what you've chosen. See how wonderful it is. I'm reminded of, what I guess it's one of my favorite stories. I didn't realize it was one of my favorite stories, but I refer to it often. The token stories is The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. And these hobbits, they're not big on adventures. They like to just stay in their comfortable hobbit holes and eat their 7 meals a day. But sometimes adventure comes for us. And when it does, which is has for you, then it's a gift. So a lot of people, they'll go through this lifetime just trying to get through. And if you're looking to them to tell you how to live your life, you will totally fail at being yourself. So that might be fine for the majority because maybe the majority, that's just where they're at. Maybe that's a part of the evolution of the soul, that it just needs to go through that for a while in order to mature, to ripen and get to that point where there's a readiness and there's some kind of opening to adventure. But then there's the ripeness has happened, so the shell has opened. You can't stay inside of the shell any longer. So now you have to venture forth. And so that's who you are. That's where you're at. I mean, that's definitely true because that's the power of how this and the miracle of how this all works. You'll see, if you haven't already seen it, you'll start to see it more and more in your life, that there's a incredible synchronicity, that things are just happening in ways that at first you might try to control it and you're trying to justify it and rationalize it and but pretty soon you'll see it just, you can't control it or even rationalize it. It's too wild and it's too big, and the the true aliveness that's moving through you and expressing through you, and it's connecting you with all of life, because that's what the adventure is it's opening you to the, I guess we could say, evolution of the soul. I mean, that's kind of a loaded phrase, but it's opening you to the greater realization of who you are. So that's a evolutionary process. We think we know who we are at a certain point because, in a sense, that is, as far as we can know, that is who we are at that point. The um, the apple is an apple up to a certain point. So the apple, well, first there's a blossom, so there's no apple. So the blossom is the blossom. There's no apple, there's just a blossom. But then at a certain point, the blossom is no longer a blossom. It's not quite an apple, but it's no longer a blossom. So there's an evolution that's taking place. And eventually it matures into an apple. Now it's an apple, solidly an apple. We can definitely say that's an apple. But then after some time, it's not quite an apple any longer by whatever means. Let's say it's rotting. So it's fallen and it's rotting. So it's not really an apple quite any longer. Somewhat reminiscent of an apple, but not quite an apple. So we can't say it's really an apple as much as it's something that was formerly an apple. And then the seeds perhaps sprout. And so now we've got the beginnings of a tree. So in that kind of sense, we could say up to a certain point, you really were who you thought you were. So at a certain stage, that's what I'm saying, the majority of humans, they're human. And so they're all looking to one another and affirming, you're human, I'm human, we're all human. This is what it is to be human. Don't get too far out of line because we're human, remember? So they're just constantly reminding one another to be human, stay in line. Don't rock the boat. Don't do anything extraordinary because it would make me uncomfortable. It would cause me to question what I really am. You know, you might recall, if you have familiarity with the story, that at a certain point in the Gospels, Jesus says to his disciples, referring to the miracles that he was working, he said, "These things and even greater will you do," because that potential exists in us. I'm kind of going to go all over the place right now, but I'm reminded of recently I was learning about what's called the vestibular system. So you have one. You might not know it, but you have one. And the vestibular system is part of the nervous system, and it's involved in a lot of things. Among the things that it's involved in, it's balance and movement, coordination. And it's the first part of the nervous system to develop in utero. And it's more or less fully formed at 5 months in utero. And it's plays a pivotal role in the development of the brain. So it's getting signals from all the movement and activity that's taking place. Then all of that is feeding into the development of the brain, because the brain is a responsive, its development is responsive throughout a lifetime. We know that this is true now. You know, it used to be, people used to think that, for example, if there was a damage to the brain through like a stroke, for example, and function was lost, people used to think, well, that's just that, you know, person lost the use of their left side of their body, and that's just that. For the rest of their life, they'll never have use of their left side of their body. But now it's known that that's not true. People can regain function that was lost because the brain is, they use the term, it has plasticity. Well, the vestibular system plays a significant role in that. And so in utero, it's getting all these signals from all the activities that are taking place. So everything that the mother is doing, the I don't know if it's a fetus or an embryo at that point, but it's getting all of the signals. The vestibular system of this growing child is getting all of these signals, and it's using all of that to build a brain that will be able to function in this environment. See, because it's like, well, what do we do here? It wants to know. What kinds of things are going on? What do I have to be able to do in this world? So it's getting that information, and then it's building the brain so that it can do those things. So that when the child is born, it has the basic knowledge of what this world is and what a human is, so that it can live in this world and be as a human. It's not done developing that at that point, but it has to have the rudimentary knowledge so that when it's born, it can do basic things. Now, why am I saying this? Because this is what our potential is unlimited. So our very nervous system is highly adaptable, so that we could be anything. But we develop speciality based on what the expectations are. So we learn how to be human based on how the humans around us are being human. And in a sense, that produces practical limitations. They're not absolute limitations, but practical limitations, so that we function in a particular way, not in other ways. But what happens is, over time, we start to identify as that. We start to identify as the limitations. Oh, this is what I can do, and this is what I can't do. But it's constantly being reinforced because by the other humans around us, because they're constantly giving us signals. We're all signaling one another. Do like this, be like this, don't step out of line, don't work miracles, don't do anything that would make me uncomfortable, don't do anything that would call into question my beliefs about what life is, what a human is, how we function. But start to look around you and question a bit and see, why, is it really all true? Are all these limitations true? Is the way that life works as you believe it, is that really true? And why do you believe that it's true? And you'll see that you don't know that it's true, and you believe that it's true because you have continually repeated to yourself that that's how it is. And you have experiences that you've interpreted to prove that that's true. And you've got a lot of evidence that other people may be signaling you that that's true. But the really interesting thing is that, and I think this may be why presently a lot of what passes for history is really quite insulting to historical beings, is that there's a really strong, probably largely unconscious desire to imagine and believe that our present modern collective view of what we are is the truth. And so there's a lot of the time it's like, don't pay any attention to those people from the past because they were inferior. They were superstitious. They held some really bizarre ideas. They were clearly stupid, though. So pay no real attention to them. We just will study them just to see how far we've come, how far we've advanced. But if we look in a more critical way, we might start to see, wow, actually, people in the past were experiencing life in a different way. Humans in the past were different than humans today. That's not really that difficult to see if you just open to it. You start to just imagine for a moment what it must have been like to have lived as an Inuit 1,000 years ago in the tundra. And maybe our minds just say, holy cow, it must have been miserable. But it couldn't have been, because these are people with a rich culture. So these people were living as different types of human than what we live as. The potential is there for us. And I'm not saying you should aspire to live in that way. What I'm saying is that we have the capacity within us to uh, live in live a profound range of experience, but we limit ourselves through our ideas and how we continue to cling to those ideas. So what I'm inviting you to is to really expand for yourself what is actually possible, and to be excited about that. To see, not be excited like, oh, I could be an Inuit living in the frozen tundra, unless that's your thing and you really want to get excited about that. But just to see that this idea that you have of yourself and all the limitations that you've been believing in are quite malleable. They're not, it's not hardwired. It's not some limitation in the physiology. So you have within your physiology enormous capacities. So if you think about what any virtually what any human has been able to do is available to you. I mean, I say virtually because obviously some humans might have certain mechanical advantages. Like it might be, maybe if you're uh 5 foot tall, maybe you're not going to do what a 6'5" strong man is going to do from a certain perspective. But those differences are fairly minor as far as it goes. So you have enormous potential within you. And the idea that there are some kind of, well, just a lot of the limitations that you might believe, just really, I'm inviting you to question them, whatever they might be. Well, it's too late for me. I'm too old. I've made too many mistakes, this, that, or the other. But see, I'll say this. Okay, this might be helpful. So um, when they say that when humans go into a low or no gravity environment, then their bones start to deteriorate. Now you might ask yourself, why is that? What causes bone density loss when people go into a low or no gravity environment? So, like when humans spend long periods of time on a space station. So, problem, they tend to lose bone density quite significantly. And it's because when they don't, when their nervous system is no longer getting any signals suggesting that they need to have bones, their body starts to adapt and says, well, I don't need bones anymore. Why bother making them? You see, it's fairly intelligent, very adaptable. It's obviously problematic because then they want to come back to Earth where they need bones. But the point I'm making here is that this will happen regardless of the age, regardless of whether the person is, 5 foot tall or 6 foot tall or 100 pounds or 150 pounds or 200 pounds or whatever. This is basic. The adaptation occurs. So you, as you understand yourself and think of yourself, are actually self-creating. You're creating all the evidence to support your view of yourself. So you create a kind of inner environment based on your notion of yourself. And then everything conforms to that. So your nervous system is simply taking whatever inner environment you create. So you create the inner environment. You say, this is who I am. These are my limitations. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. This is why it's too late for me, and this is why it's too hard for me, and this is why it will never work for me, and on it. And this is, I've got these problems, and I've had them forever, and I'll have them forever because nothing can ever really fix them, and yada yada yada. So you're creating that inner environment, and your nervous system says, no problem, boss. And it produces that for you. And then you look in the mirror and you say, see, I knew it all along. But what I'm inviting you to right now is to see that you're already using that power, but you've been using it unconsciously, and you can begin to use it consciously so that you can create and live and express authentically who you really want to be, because it's who you really are. And that is absolutely unquestionably available to you. And you've hopefully taken this step over, you've crossed the line, crossed the point of no return. And now you are committed fully to this. I guess you didn't know fully what you were committing to, but that's the nature of the adventure, is you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. You just have to say yes. And now you're on this adventure and you can't go back despite any protestations of the cynic who wants desperately to go back to its hobbit hole. And I'm saying, okay, you have these incredible powers within you, and they've always been there. And you've been using them, but you didn't know you were using them. And you were using them in ways that were working against you. But now you can be awake and you can start to work with them in a way that actually expresses truthfully, authentically who you are. And the more you do that, the more you will see that reflected back to you when you look in the mirror, whether it's the mirror on the bathroom wall or it's the mirror of your life reflecting back to you what you are knowing about yourself inside. And you can start to tell the truth about who you really are, and you can be bold in that. And when other people, maybe you think, are giving you feedback that you shouldn't be that bold, how dare you, you're making us uncomfortable, then just look to see what your habitual reaction to that is, and whether or not that's actually truthful. And just be truthful. Just be truthful to yourself. Know that this life is a gift. It's no small thing, and you don't want to waste it. And you're not going to just play it safe any longer. You're not going to just wait around for death to come and put an end to it, but you're going to be bold in being yourself. So that should be your guide, being yourself rather than what you think you're supposed to be. So the last thing I want to just reiterate, because I think I made it clear, but I'm not. I want to be certain that I've expressed it as clearly as possible. The You have within you unlimited potential that you are made to be able to express and adapt infinitely. The sky is the limit. And the more that you say yes to the adventure, the more that you're willing to embrace it and accept that everything that happens from here on out is part of that authentic expression, the more you welcome that, the more that you affirm that, the more that you work with that consciously, the more that you will see that the potentials are unleashed. And you'll see that these synchronicities are happening, and it will be undeniable. And you will receive so much confirmation, not that you might not still doubt, but you will see so much confirmation that will help to support you, to encourage you, and to allow that childlike nature to continue to venture forth. So that's what I have to say today. I hope that this has been somewhat clear. I hope that it has made some sense to you. I hope that it has encouraged you in a good way. And for those who are here live, I'm happy to stay on for Q&A after this. But for this portion, I'm going to end the recording. So let me do that now.